This podcast is brought to you by sarahraven.com, which is home to everything you need for a truly beautiful and productive garden. You'll also find great and essential gardening kit and stylish, lovely things to have in your house to bring the outside indoors, all inspired by the garden and the house being tied together. There's also plenty of garden inspiration, how-to videos and specialist growing guides. So head over to sarahraven.com today to discover even more. Welcome to Grow, Cook, Eat, Arrange, the podcast of me, Sarah Raven. And today I'm joined by a friend and colleague, Arit Anderson, who is just the most wonderful person who I'm sure lots of you have heard on the podcast before. But she is just like the sun. She just emanates joy and care for other people. And anyway, hello, Arit. How lovely to see you.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. It's lovely, as always, to see you. I feel like I've come home when I come and sit on the podcast, or I'm down at Perch Hill. It's lovely.
Oh, good. So Arit is doing the most incredibly ambitious and exciting project at the Chelsea Flower Show in May this year. So just in a week or two. And I just really wanted to pin her down. Poor Arit, she's so busy, as one always is. So we're really lucky to have her. But I would love her to talk us through why she's doing it, who she's doing it for, and the themes. And then, of course, maybe a little bit on the highs and lows so far, which obviously there are some yet to come. But Arit, first of all, tell us about the evolution of how it came about.
Yeah, well, it was an evolution, I can assure you. So it started with the fact I'm a trustee of the National Garden Scheme. I think you know that, which I love. I love the simplicity of it. Open a garden, you have to have tea and cake. And then we make lots of money for beneficiaries of healthcare charities, one of which is Parkinson's.
Yeah.
And I was at one of our evening events, and I happened to be sat next to the chair of trustees for Parkinson's, Gary Shaughnessy, who has Parkinson's. And I was also sat next to one of the trustees of Project Giving Back, who are the sponsors of many of the charity gardens at Chelsea. So we're having a nice chat and all of these things. And I revealed to them that my elder sister has Parkinson's. So we was having a chat, etc. And the idea was like, well, why don't you put in for a garden at Chelsea, which I'd always said I'm not doing because I've been very lucky to have done my Hampton Court garden, got my gold tick, thank you, that's job done. And then the RHS have given me the opportunity to be at Chelsea before for one of their gardens. Yeah. So I thought that's enough because you don't get judged on those. So the idea of going on to Main Avenue for a charity that I have a lot of care and passion for, obviously, and then also to put myself on that medal run, Sarah. Yeah, exactly. I just thought, do I really want to do this?
If you'd rung me, Arit, I'd have told you.
Yes, I should have phoned a friend. I said, can I phone a friend on this? Because the options were up, yes, no. And I should have said, can I ring a friend? And so, of course, I wanted to press the no button. But my darling sister, who has had Parkinson's for the last 12 years or so now, and I've watched how it's impacted her life, how it impacts us. And I think with any of these gardens that I've done, especially when there's a charitable cause behind it, you have to go beyond yourself. It's in that moment, it's not about me. It's not about the medal. The medal, yes, it's the goal and all of that, but your driver to do it has to come deep within. And I thought, what an opportunity for Parkinson's UK to have a platform. Chelsea's a platform, as you know, internationally world renowned, one of our best flower shows in the world. The reach is incredible with the TV coverage.
Absolutely.
Well, I think a lot of people, Sarah, I'm sure you've kind of come under that scrutiny before in terms of, should we be doing Chelsea? Obviously, the sustainability aspects of it, etc. But we have to be really, actually, I say the word grateful, but we have to be so pleased that our industry gets a slot of 15 hours of TV.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing.
It is amazing, and not many other industries get that. So I think it's something that we have to celebrate and embrace. So everything was pushing me to say, Arit, you need to do this because it's going to help so many people. Because Because Parkinson's, Sarah, is a condition that is actually little understood. I think a lot of people know of it, have heard of it. You know, if I asked you now, not putting you on the spot, what do you know about Parkinson's? What do you think when you think of Parkinson's?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because I'm an ex-medic, I know a little bit.
Well,
but,
of course.
But the problem is also the medication from Parkinson's just hasn't been developed, has it? I mean, the investment in the medication, it's still very old-fashioned.
That's right. You're absolutely right. Of course, you know, but I guess if I ask a lay person,
you describe exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So most people think of Parkinson's as something, number one, that's for older people, and predominantly it used to be about older men would develop Parkinson's in older age, and that would be that. And we would associate it with a tremor,
yeah,
you know, a shaky hand, maybe a little bit stooped, and maybe not being able to speak so well. And that's kind of, without being rude, what most people think about Parkinson's. That what they don't think of it as, it's a neurological condition. It's one that you cannot get better from at this stage because, as you say, the treatment that we have is still very old in terms of, and I say treatment, it's more symptomatic relief.
Yeah.
And at this stage, there is no cure. So for somebody that's diagnosed with Parkinson's, it's a heavy burden. My sister had breast cancer before in her sort of 40s. And she said to me, you know what, Arit, when I got that, I knew that there was a way that there would be a hope for me to be treated. And when she got given her diagnosis in her 60s, she just retired. She was like, I can't get better from this.
Yeah.
And our uncle, he had Parkinson's and died with the condition. So it's something that we was aware of in our family, but again, didn't know the intricacies of it. So knowing this, I think with Parkinson's UK, they have a big job. They're not one of our biggest charities, so they don't get huge amounts of extra funding like cancer or heart foundations. They don't get it in the same way, but they're so people focused. And I know that sort of might sound a bit obvious, but they really care about each person within their community of having this individual Parkinson's journey. And the reason why it's so individual, and this is what starts to roll into the garden design, which I'll go on to, is there are over 40 symptoms within Parkinson's. And you don't know which symptoms you're going to get when. You don't know which ones will reveal themselves at a later stage. And you are trying to manage these symptoms with a very heavy duty drug, as you say, an old school drug that is very heavy duty. So what Parkinson's is, it's a condition where dopamine cells in the brain stop producing dopamine. And we think of dopamine as one of the happy hormones. We always talk about endorphins and happy hormones. Dopamine does more than just make us feel good. It controls a lot of our motor skills. It controls our mood, for sure. It does do that. And it has quite a lot of complexity in how it's operating in our system. And many people, when they have Parkinson's, by the time they're diagnosed, it's estimated that probably 50% of those brain cells have already died.
Gosh, wow.
So that's quite a lot. So my sister started off with a very small hand tremor. And I remember, because she used to do my books for me, because she's an accountant. And I visited her, and a few times I'd noticed this little handshake, and she could stop it if she put her other hand on it. And she attributed it to just some stress and, things were going on. And I said, Jules, I think you should get it sorted out. And I had no idea that the diagnosis would come back as Parkinson's. And one other symptom that's really important that we want to share with people at the garden, and I'll explain how these symptoms are going to roll into the garden design, is that my sister lost her sense of smell 10 or 15 years ago. And now I know
that's part of the spectrum.
Absolutely. It's a big precursor symptom.
Yeah.
And of course, we've now had COVID come into the mix. So people now, if they maybe lose their sense of smell or temporarily, may think it's COVID. And what I would urge people, because I remember being on a garden one time and a guy saying to me, I said, that's a lovely rose. Why don't you smell it? And he said, I can't smell. I've not smelled anything for years. And I thought, I just said to him, I think it would just be a really good idea to go to a doctor, because we should all have our sense of smell, because often we probably wouldn't think of it. So that's one of the symptoms that can come early and can be an indicator for a medic to...
Gosh, that's so interesting. I didn't know that at all, Arit.
Yeah. Well, I think also for us that love gardens, we're a sense of beings, and we're in our gardens. And sometimes things like the sense of smell, I guess, can sort of almost vaporize, and you all of a sudden you don't realize that you're not smelling, because my sister can still taste. So often people think that you can't taste if you can't smell, but she can. So some of these symptoms that come into play are quite difficult. Insomnia is a real one. Obviously, that leads to agitation and anxiety. Anxiety is a symptom, Sarah. It's something that I so underestimated. There's one thing to get anxious if we're nervous about things, worried about things, but to have that as a symptom that my sister Julie, I should give her a name, bless her, Julie. She was never an anxious person. And now I see that the anxiety, and I have to remind her, Jules, remember, that's one of your symptoms. That's not you. So I always say to her, you have Parkinson's, you are not it. But it's very difficult. So what we did is we decided, I say we, I think a greater force upstairs decided, you're going to do this garden, Arit. And we decided that we would do it collaboratively with people from the Parkinson's community. Yeah, it was really lovely. We invited them to a workshop, people who had Parkinson's who love gardening.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it was really good. We should have come to yours, actually. We could have floated around at Percher. They'd have loved that. But we held a workshop, and what was really interesting was that the outcome was for them to kind of come up with some design ideas and considerations for me to make a garden. Now, at this stage, they didn't know it was for Chelsea, because we couldn't divulge that because we hadn't got our funding in place. We hadn't been accepted by the RHS. But we had all committed in the Parkinson's team that even if we didn't get in, we wanted to make sure that gardening was something that people who have Parkinson's could turn to help with their symptoms, because gardening is known to, as we know, for so many symptoms, gardening definitely can help with Parkinson's. So we went through this process, and we came up with about 8 different design principles that they wanted to have within a garden. I won't run through all of them, but some of them, they were really keen to, for me, could I explore the insomnia part? Is there a way that I could bring that in with a garden? The fact that when you walk with Parkinson's, so your gait, the walking gait,
shuffling,
you shuffle. That's it. The shuffle, that obviously creates trip hazard. There's also a thing where for some people, if you see different lines on the ground or sharp directional change, can cause freezing. It's another symptom where the brain just, the way it got explained to me, it made so much sense. This brain is trying to fire off in so many different places with not all of its hormone in place. And it's almost a bit like your computer, that horrible whirring wheel. Well, it's like the brain sort of says, I can't take in that amount of extra information. So it freezes momentarily. Yeah. So, and this one of the ladies explained that happened to her when she was crossing the road. So quite terrifying.
Wow.
Because she, physically couldn't move. Could you imagine? So, so we took these design principles. We wanted to look at about 8 or so of them. And I've tried to incorporate them in the design to not show a doom and gloom side of analogy and the pathway, the journey of Parkinson's, because obviously that's just too depressing. We want this garden to be a place where people can take some tips away, and ideas away, but more importantly, Sarah, like most gardens, be a sanctuary space to be able to and be joyful. Yeah.
How brilliant. So you're on Main Avenue, you're one of those huge sites. Yes. And so what's the main planting? If we start with the sort of structural stuff and then down to the detail and the colours and things?
So the main structure, there's sort of the key element is it's a journey. The garden's called Parkinson's UK, a garden for every Parkinson's journey, because it's celebrating the fact that everybody's individual.
Yeah.
So there is a path that leads you all the way through the garden. As you go into the garden, you will be first greeted by a seating area on your left. And around that is wrapped what we're calling our handrail, a play on words. So it functions as both a handrail and a raised water reel, so that those people that just need a little bit of steadying can lean against it, walk with it for a bit. And there's water running through it. So that sensory cue of both the noise or maybe the water in your fingers. So for the freezing element, that you can tune into that. And that wraps itself around a really joyful, colourful planting zone. And I'll come back to the planting in a moment. So that's what greets you as you're walking on the left. As you continue to walk around, on the right hand side is our more calm, cooler woodland, more planting, to kind of have that sort of juxtapose to this sort of either needed being energized by a bright border or having that more calming experience. Another seating area, because seating is important for people with Parkinson's. They need to have a rest. They do tire quickly.
Yeah.
And then we had a little detail of a sculpture that will be there, because one of the lovely ladies said in her garden, of course, she can't have a lovely handrail, but she has little stopping points. So it's like in your garden, so you can know that if I go 10, 15 steps, I can have a rest on, she rests on her sculpture. So we wanted to bring that into the garden.
Brilliant.
And then, and then you carry on walking through the garden, and toward the back of the garden in the corner, you'll then be greeted by a large wooden sculpture, almost kind of conch-like in shape. And then you can go and sit underneath that, and it's got little holes in to let shafts of light in. And that area faces out onto a border that is kind of what we're calling our night border, because it will have more whites and pale blues and things in there. And the idea for that, well, hopefully it will be, hopefully. But the idea of that is that this is about extending the use of the garden for those people who have, well, I guess any condition, but certainly for the insomnia element.
Yes.
So, you know, like obviously when you turn the lights down, at night, and the whites and the paler plants come a bit more alive, don't they, at dusk time?
Yeah.
So we want people to think about, you know, planting maybe some of those paler colours, which is normally the opposite, which we say, don't we, in garden design, that you plant the paler colours at the back so that you can see them further into the garden. But if you have them a bit nearer to your home, because obviously I don't want people to go out at night and have a trip hazard, but you could plant even just some containers, so that at night when you're not able to sleep and you're feeling awful about waking your loved ones, and you can just go and sit by a window or open the door and let the garden still be there. So we've got some lighting. We've had working with a lighting designer so that our lighting is sensitive enough for people to walk through, but also being very conscious of the wildlife and making sure that, you know, downlighters, warm glow lights, making sure that the lighting beams aren't too wide. So that sort of takes you through the main kind of key elements of the garden. So we have this handrail, we have this shelter, and we have these structural seats, and they've all been made out of a very sustainable timber called a coir.
Yeah.
This amazing technique that the manufacturer is using, which I hope is going to be really quite stunning, very tactile, because it's kind of smooth, but running it like a ribbon through the garden. And it has, it's got sort of like a milling technique on it that kind of really kind of accentuates the curvaceousness of this rill. So we've really tried to, the layout, if you were looking down as if you were a bird flying over, is there's no straight lines, just like in nature.
Yeah.
That it's kind of been taken off of shapes that are natural shapes, not quite Fibonacci, but there's a little bit of overlay in there as well. And then these three sort of, well, there's kind of two, but they merge into three planting zones that are going to be within the space. So the colourful zone, which is kind of where the rill mainly lives and sits. So what was, I thought, key is I wanted to make sure that there were plants in there that are just the stalwarts that people engage with and recognise straight away. You know, like you, we're very lucky to be exposed to, you know, lots of new planting ideas, and, you know, we've got all the climate change and resilience, there's all of that. But at the base of it, at this moment in time, if I've got somebody who's already having to use a lot of brain power with their Parkinson's, they need recognisable plants. So we've got beautiful peonies grown by Claire Austin. We'll have tulips, of course, Sarah. We've got tulips there, and which is also the international symbol for Parkinson's. So I'm hoping that we can keep them going. Yes, we've got tulips. So we've got roses. We have a new rose from Harkness that's going to be launched at the show, scentless, because we want to, because we want to represent that not everybody can smell, and the colours in there will be quite sort of punched up in there as well, but all sort of more, English garden plants that people will hopefully just be able to rest the eye on and recognize and know that they could take one or two of those plants home and maybe add them into their palette. So that was really key. And then the woodland area, we're going to have some lovely digitalis, of course, a lovely white digitalis alba will be there, that kind of woodland inspired planting that will be coming through. And the trees, obviously, I shouldn't forget our wonderful trees as well. So the thing obviously with Chelsea is, it's like a moment in time, a snapshot.
Yeah.
And really, as a designer, you want to say, coming back in spring, or could you come in autumn? And you can't. So I have to I've put trees in there that we have Malus butterball, which is a fabulous crab apple.
Wonderful.
It's so nice. It's a white blossom, which will have just gone over by the time we get into Chelsea. But I want people to imagine at the other end of the season, this fantastic yellow, zingy crab apples that are going to be there in the relocation of the garden. We've got a lovely Cornus mass, which again would give lovely early flowering. And then a Magnolia cobus will be standing tall at the back of the garden. So I know, unfortunately, I won't have all of these in flower at the time, but as we know, I have to snapshot it, and I've decided to snapshot with these particular plants that in the real life, when it goes on to the John Radcliffe Hospital.
Oh, that's so exciting. I was going to ask where its destination. Yeah.
Well, its destination is the John Radcliffe, because that is a centre of excellence for Parkinson's. So it will be lovely, because there's a big community in Oxfordshire for Parkinson's community who want to look after the garden when it gets there.
Fantastic. And so when do you move on site? What's your actual date of moving on site?
Yes. 28th of April.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
So we go on site the 28th of April. We build and plant all the way up until the 16th of May. So that's the final Saturday, is when we're all like, right, come on, everything, because the assessor comes round to make sure that we're on track. I'm allowed to tell the assessor if there was something that's slightly gone awry. You get to tell them then. You then get judged on the 17th of May.
Yeah, Sunday.
That'll be a big Sunday, so send the prayers out. And then we all flop and have press day on the Monday, on the 18th, and then it's medals on Tuesday.
Tuesday morning. That sort of terrible walk around early in the morning. Yeah,
exactly.
Oh, Arit, God, it's so interesting. I wonder if we can get you to come back, or I can get you to come back to talk about it after the event.
Definitely.
But what an amazing, amazing thing. And is your sister going to be involved and there a bit, or?
Yeah. So she hasn't been able to join the initial workshop that we had.
Yeah.
But we are hoping to do some filming, which she may be able to be involved in. It's such a weird one, Sarah, because all of a sudden your family member who's not about telly or anything, and she's been, I think, hugely brave, because she knows that I want to talk about her, and she knows that. And we hope that she'll be well enough as well to be there at press day, obviously, so she can come and see the garden, because her condition, I said actually to somebody the other day, I had a little bit of a teary moment. You get tired and you're worried about things, and I said, I really wish I wasn't doing this garden, because I wish Jules wasn't unwell with Parkinson's.
Yeah, of course.
But she is, and what we really hope is, I really want this garden to be a voice for all those people, past and present and future, who are going to get diagnosed with this condition, to know that people do care, because it's a condition where people don't understand it. It's only been recent. Yeah, they don't. You probably saw that a lot when you was doing your medical time, that you just don't know what the condition's about and these complexities that go on, because at the end of the day, it's 1 minute you're like us, striding along, doing your thing, and the next minute somebody tells you, oh, actually, sorry, your brain's not functioning.
Yes.
And it's going to affect the rest of your life.
Half.
Yeah, half of it's already not functioning. But we want the joy of gardening.
Yes, absolutely.
We want that to be the thing that helps people. It can help with movement, obviously physical gardening. Stiffness is a condition. Using seed sowing, bulb planting, the dexterity that you need in your fingers. For the anxiety, being in a garden space. So some people can't be active, but get outside and do that. And use the garden to be the safe space.
Yeah. Well, as you said, you have Parkinson's, but you're not it. I mean, It's so articulate the way you've described it all, Arit. I'm really grateful. I think people will feel very moved by it and interested. And even if we can't all get tickets to go to Chelsea or can't geographically get there, we'll see lots of it on coverage, I hope. Are you filming as well? Are you doing... Oh, my goodness. You're more mad than I am, Arit.
I am. I know. Well, the thing is, yes, it's I am going to be filming, so I think I'll literally roll out of my steel toe caps.
Yes.
I will transition definitely into trainers, so there will be a good pair of trainers on site, obviously, and then I can roll into what are now the beloved frocks. Frocks could have their own show.
And have you got a building that you can hide in? Because that's what is there anywhere on it that you can just lock yourself in and make a cup of tea?
Yeah, so we've got the lovely Project Giving Back, who are a fantastic sponsor. The generosity of the philanthropists who have recognised that charities needed to have a platform after the pandemic and have just given tirelessly to allow so many charities to be able to speak their voice in a public domain like Chelsea. And they have a little coffee stand where we can just go and hide and breathe for a moment.
Brilliant.
So I'll be probably mainly in there, but
you will need it.
Yeah.
Oh, Arit, such good luck from me, and I'm sure everyone who's listening, incredibly. I mean, as you say, it's not about the medal. It's about how it's sort of perceived and getting the message out there. And I know, having talked to you today, you will get it out there absolutely brilliantly. So courage for the next episode in your life.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you.
Bye. Lovely to talk.
And you.
Thanks so much for listening to me and Arit Anderson on Grow Cook Eat Arrange. Next week, I'm joined by Pollyanna Wilkinson. Just coming off the end of Chelsea, I wanted to chat to her about her amazing book, How to Design a Garden, because I sort of feel garden design is very much in people's minds at the moment because the Chelsea Flower Show has been all over the telly and maybe you've made it yourself to the actual show. But Pollyanna's book is really, really so good at helping you, holding your hand in how to design your own garden. So join me then. You can find more information, photos and advice sheets on all the plants and recipes we talk about on this podcast by heading to the show notes or at sarahraven.com/podcast.